Yesterday, Don King visited Mike Tyson for the first time since the former champion was imprisoned last month in Indiana. Coming up right after us at the bottom of the hour, Don King joins Dick Schaap on Schaap Talk. Dick standing by now with the boxing promoter. Dick?
Thank you, Charlie, and he's already told everyone that you were with Mike yesterday. Just give us up to date. How is Mike?
Mike is doing fine. He's keeping his spirits up. He's unjustly incarcerated. I think it's a travesty of justice, but nevertheless, he's not giving up on America, which is so vitally important, and that's what I admonish him not to do, is to give up on America, let due process run its course, and that's what we're trying to do to get him out of there.
Is he taking care of himself? Is he eating, working out?
He's eating, and he was sweating when he came out. He was working out when he came out, so he'll stay in good shape there, and he had good spirits mentally, and so we're very optimistic about it, and we're hopeful that the Supreme Court will come down with a decision very shortly. One will be favorable that won't step on due process as has been done in the earlier courts.
Okay, we will talk more about that on Schaap Talk. Now back to Charlie Steiner, who'll wrap up this edition of SportsCenter after these messages. Hair gives him away. Our guest tonight is Don King, the heavyweight champion of promoting, a man who has made millions and millions of dollars for his fighters, and not coincidentally, millions and millions for himself. Good evening. I'm Dick Schaap, and welcome to Schaap Talk, which tonight probably ought to be called Schaap Listen, because our guest is a man of many words, each of them with many syllables. If you'd like to talk to Don King or listen to Don, call us at 1-800-831-ESPN. That's 1-800-831-ESPN. Don King burst upon the boxing scene in the mid-1970s, promoted the Rumble in the Jungle and the Thriller in Manila. He rode to riches with Muhammad Ali, then after Ali fell, allied himself with Larry Holmes, and then after Holmes fell, allied himself with Mike Tyson. Don, I'll try to get in a word right at the beginning now, then let you run. People said, when you began directing the career of Mike Tyson, he was the undefeated heavyweight champion of the world. He was a hero. He potentially could be the greatest fighter of all time. Now he's lost a fight. He's lost his title. He's lost his freedom. Do you share part of the responsibility for that?
Well, first of all, Dick, when I began to promote Mike Tyson's career, he wasn't the heavyweight champion. I'm the promoter that enabled him to become the heavyweight champion. I gave him an opportunity to fight for the title after beating Ratliff, after beating Mitch Blood Green. Then I put him in with Trevor Berbick. And then from Trevor Berbick on to Bone Crusher Smith and on to Tony Tucker, which he unified the title.
Right. Your relationship with him, though, changed after that. I mean, up to then, you were the promoter. Then you became much more than the promoter.
Yeah, I became a friend and a promoter. But you see, people misconstrue. I've been with Mike throughout his whole entire career. When he came out of club fights, his managers at the time was Bill Caton and Jim Jacobs, and they brought him to me. And then I took him up to the top, and he became the explosive fighter of heavyweight champion, undisputed champion. Mike Tyson is a wonderful guy. I love Mike Tyson, and I think he's a man, and that's what really disturbs people, because he wants to be able to call his shots and do his thing the way any other man would do, putting aside childish things and taking on manly things. And so I'm very proud of Mike Tyson. Unfortunately, he's incarcerated, and I feel that's unjust. And I feel due process will help him to get himself out of that, so don't give up on America, Charlie.
No, I know you feel that way. Maybe I didn't give you enough credit for building him up. But the same thing is, his fall. I mean, do you feel a bit responsible for that? He obviously is your friend, and you do care about him, and you've seen him take this terrible fall, whether justified or not, in your opinion. Do you feel that you share it with him?
I share his hurt with him. I share his pain with him. But the fall is because it's a well-devised a plan to make him fall, because he's no longer capitulating and submitting to what people would want him to do. Mike Tyson is a franchise in himself, and this is all about economics. Mike Tyson enabled me to establish King Vision with Tony Cox and Showtime, which will enable us to build a business in pay-per-view. We left HBO, and after we left HBO, you had an onslaught of negative propaganda that coupled him with every negative associations, along with the things that were happening to him that had been singly separated would not have been anything to really cry about, but you put them in the aggregate, it looked like this guy is just a moral monster. That's the way they all painted him. And so when Mike Tyson is a victim of circumstance, I feel he's a political prisoner because it's an economic situation here that's really about competing for greed, for power, you know what I mean, for control.
Okay, we'll talk more about it. Let's take our first phone call from Lisa in Louisiana. Go ahead, Lisa.
Good evening, Mr. King. I had the pleasure of meeting you 2 years ago in Baton Rouge.
Well, thank you, Lisa. Welcome to Schaap Talk.
But before I ask my question, thanks for all the work you have done for African Americans and for the world of boxing, because in every walk of life, people will criticize you. Now my question.
Okay.
Some say the conviction of Mike Tyson may have been a conspiracy to get at you. They go on to say that Time Warner may be behind this conspiracy. Is there any truth to this?
Yes, I feel that it is a lot of truth to that. First, I'd like to thank you for your comments. But let me say that it's not Time Warner. It is HBO. I think that this is where it all stems from, because I have many enemies, because as you get successful in climbing the ladder of success, you're going to always have those who would criticize and ostracize and vilify you any way that they can. But however, what I blame the HBO for, and that is Michael Fuchs and Seth Abraham, is galvanizing these enemies and directing them in a path that would cause the demise of a Mike Tyson.
Now, but they were your allies and your friends at one time.
13 years, and they were my friends. And listen, that's the most hurting part about it.
Why would they turn against you?
Because we wasn't there with them, and it's about economics and money. They put us out, not they. Seth put us out. He decided that he would renege on his word and that he would not live up to what his thing is. So Mike Tyson said he wanted to go out from under the deal. In so doing, I established King Vision, which is a pay-per-view which would have been in direct competition to them. So then what they did is they galvanized all of the troops and put them out there with Sports Illustrated and Jack Newfield and Jose Torres. And,
all your friends.
Yeah, all of my friends, put them all together.
Take a call. Maybe this is another friend calling. Corey in Norfolk, Virginia. Go ahead, Corey.
Yes, how you doing, Mr. King?
Corey, how are you?
I'm doing okay.
Good.
I would like to ask you a question. Why has boxers and promoters label you as the villain of boxing, or the person who you wouldn't want to associate yourself with?
Because I'm a threat to them, Corey. Don't you understand that if I was as bad as they say I was and as comfortable as they say I was, I'd have been locked up a long time ago. I'm #1 in boxing, been so for 20 straight years consecutively. So therefore, I got to be doing something right. I revolutionized the pay scale in boxing. I've made more boxers millionaires than anyone in the history of the world. And in so doing, I've made a lot of enemies, where the people that can't compete with me by their merit and ability, they have to use whatever type of underhanded method they can by coupling me with negative associations to render me ineffective to do business with white people and to make my black brothers and sisters have doubt and dubiousness about associating themselves.
We will take a break now, and when we come back, we will translate for you.
Schaap Talk is brought to you by Bud Dry. Dry brewed so it drinks light, yet satisfies completely.
Mike Tyson is in prison, and we are back with Don King, who yesterday visited Mike Tyson in prison. We'll take a phone call right away from a Mike in New Iberia. Go ahead, Mike.
Yes, Mr. King.
Mike,
I followed the trial pretty closely, and I was curious how he could be convicted on, I believe it was 5 counts, and I didn't see any physical evidence in the trial. Nothing came out, and I was wondering if you were aware of more, if you could elaborate more on that.
Mike, that's what's so shocking to everybody in America, and what's amazing is that the groundswell of black women especially, and white women, and associate with them, that don't believe Mike is guilty in spite of the jury's conviction. I mean, it's something in there that justifies that what Carlyle said, that no lie can live forever, and it's something in the universe that justifies William Cullen Bryant saying the truth crushed to the earth will rise again. What we have here is a travesty of justice with no physical evidence. Mike is with this girl. Mike is performing oral sex on this girl. She has her arms free. She has her mouth free. She can go out and talk, and nobody never brings that into account. You know what I mean? She could have screamed, raped. The walls in hotels are like tissue paper. You know what everybody's doing next door. Everybody's
Mike is
neighbor.
a pretty strong fellow. But
No, but
totally aside from that, totally aside from that, just the fact that you feel it was a travesty of justice, a miscarriage of justice. When you were acquitted a few years ago of the income tax evasion, you held the system. You said only in America. You said the system works, and now you're saying the system doesn't work.
No, I didn't say that. No. Don't say that. I believe the system works. I think the system has been abused here. I think that you have some of the prurient interest here that has derailed due process. But when we put due process back on the trail again, I think it would go right on down the line. I think that if Mike don't, I told Mike yesterday, don't give up on America, believe in America, because I believe in America. So therefore, my belief will be justified when he runs the course of due process. I feel that in the first leg of this appeal, they're trying to protect the honor of the judge's sentiment and passion rather than the upholding and supporting of the Constitution and the law. So what we have here is an abrogation of the civil rights and the constitutional rights and not even giving this guy bail. Now, it's only 2 crimes, Dick, in America that are not suspendable and are not bailable, and that is treason and first-degree murder. Now, here they have a young fighter that they're saying he may flee. I mean, it's ridiculous. Where's he going to flee to? You know what I mean? And they didn't give him bail when they got a guy in Philadelphia who gave 300 kids AIDS and come back and let him out, come back and give another 200 kids AIDS, and so now
there's a little difference over Mike is convicted and this guy isn't. And let's take a call.
It doesn't matter.
Eric in Bloomingdale, New Jersey. Eric, go ahead. Maybe you can get through.
Eric, come on in.
I was just wondering if you think Mike Tyson will ever come back and box?
I think Mike Tyson will have his rights restored because I believe in this country called America, and I think that infinite wisdom of the founding fathers made the correction of errors. That's why they made appeals courts. If courts would be judged by the first court that you go in, it would be absolute. We would all be in trouble. So they have established a system whereby a judicial process of appeal to correct errors and to be able to give a review and reconsideration of cases that would be outside of due process. And I think this is one that is blatantly outside of due process. In fact, there's a brilliant black lawyer down in Indianapolis, a black lady named Yvonne Watkins, who has told me about the groundswell of the public opinion and that is really coming out for Mike Tyson. No matter what they say, they just feel it. It's a spiritual thing. It's something like a groundswell of a public opinion that's rising in his defense.
When I saw you in the Indianapolis airport a couple of weeks ago, you were very worried about what might happen to Mike in prison. You've been in prison yourself. You spent 4 years there. How tough is it for a man who's as independent as Mike or as independent as you to put up with that life?
It is very difficult in prison because you find people that will be shooting at you and provoking arguments, instigating, contriving, and conjuring up different stories. You have the finks in there, which are the snitches that come in and try to set you up to try to get a few brownie points from the guards. I fear for Mike Tyson's life because...
How did you survive?
I survived by reading. I made the time serve me rather than to serve the time. I spent all of my time either in the Catholic Church and in the library. Whenever I had any off time at all, I would be there, and then I would work at reading and educating myself in the penitentiary. So Mike has to do likewise. He has to walk real slow and drink a lot of water, because if you don't, they're going to, with the things that they've already bought up on him, like, you know, giving him a ticket for giving out autographs when the guard is the one who does it. I feel that they're trying to plot on Mike, and they try to dehumanize, degrade, demean him by putting him in shackles, you know, but the shackles were shackles of liberation, not of degradation, because Mike Tyson went in as a man. He wasn't on his knees, supplicant, begging and crawling and admitting to something that he didn't do. So all the whole community of America, we like that, you know what I mean? And we appreciate that, Mike. We're proud of you, so hang in there.
I mean, obviously, while Don was in prison, he memorized Roget's Thesaurus and Webster's International. We'll be back with Don King after these messages. Welcome back to Schaap Talk with the man who some people say is boxing, which may not be a nice thing to say about either of them. Don King is our guest, and our phone number is 1-800-831-ESPN. Let's go to our next call from Ken in Carlisle, Pennsylvania. You have a question for Don, Ken?
Yes, I do, Dick.
Go ahead.
How are you?
Nice to meet you, Don.
Thank you. Welcome to Schaap Talk.
My question is, of all the fighters you have been associated with throughout the years, who was your favorite and why?
Well, I had all of the fighters were very favorite to me, but Larry Holmes was one that I raised. I took him from the beginning of his professional career to an undefeated championship in about 6 years. As you know, Muhammad Ali, when he came in, was a legend already himself, a three-time heavyweight champion of the world, and Herbert Muhammad gave me the honor and privilege of promoting him. But Larry Holmes is one I developed from his first professional fight throughout his career, and I think that he was very, very close to me, you know, and so it was, and he also held a champion for 7.5 years, longer than anyone other than the inimitable and incomparable Brown Bomber Joe Louis.
You taught Larry a lot of things. Did you learn from Ali?
Yes, I learned from Ali, and I learned from Larry, too. It's an experience. It's a growing experience when you're dealing. And I learned from Mike Tyson, you know what I mean, that here's a kid that comes out of the bowels of the ghetto, but yet has a self-identification that many of us as blacks are still searching for, trying to find out who we are, suffering from consciousness of inferiority. I find this young ghetto kid who had been raised by Cus D'Amato and Camille Iwar, and that he had found himself, you know, maybe some of the things he did may not have been suitable or suited to what others' taste may be, but he stood up as a man to accept the responsibility of manhood and discharge it as such with self-reliance and self-assertiveness. I thought that was very commendable for him. So I've had a wonderful, glorious career promoting prize fighters in this great nation called America and around the world. And I've worked for them, and that's why I was been so successful at doing what I do, and it's what has created so much envy and jealousy, Dick.
Well, let me give another caller a chance. His name is Ben in Anaheim, California. Go ahead, Ben.
How are you today, Mr. King?
Ben, it's just a pleasure to have you on Schaap Talk.
How do you feel about Muhammad Ali's present condition today?
I think that Muhammad Ali has been a legend himself. I think he's had a glorious career. I think that he made every head bow, every knee bend, every tongue confess that thou art the greatest of all times. I feel very sad that he's been inflicted with the Parkinson syndrome. But you can't attribute that to boxing. These are some of the things that happen, and I think maybe God has chosen him to be a champion for Parkinson syndrome so that he can go out and raise money and fight this disease just as Jerry Lewis does muscular dystrophy, and try to raise money to do this because Howard Cosell has the same thing, and he's never taken a blow in the center of the ring. So I think it's something that happens to us in our society, and that somehow we be chosen to carry the bloodstained banner, so to speak. And I'm very happy for Muhammad Ali. I love the guy. I think he's a wonderful, wonderful man.
Let's take another call from Heathcliff in Detroit. It's a wonderful name. Go ahead, Heathcliff.
Heathcliff, it is.
Hello, Mr. King. In your opinion, who is the best heavyweight in boxing?
In boxing today?
Yes.
In boxing today, it's got to be Mike Tyson. There's no other heavyweight out there that could deal with him in this particular era. As you know, that we have a heavyweight champion that none of us can be too very proud of, but he doesn't create any excitement. He has no testicles, so he doesn't stand up. He's the kind of a guy that is more like a bondsman in 1849. He's looking for affirmative action, and we call him a welfare champion because he wants to fight old men and no men. However, one of the old men he's about to take on, who was just a relic of what he used to be, I think will beat him, and that will really expose him for what he really is when he fights Larry Holmes in June.
Was there a time when you thought Holyfield was a good fighter?
I thought he was a good prospect that was coming up, but as I begin to see his ways, he's a guy that gains fame, acclaim, and influence, Dick, and he never speaks up for his people. If he was a Jew, they would have to take him out there in the back and do something to him, because no Jew would ever stand up and not speak up for Jewish people when they get out there to do. This is what makes it so good. The saga of the Jews is something I like to imitate and emulate in going through the persecution and slavery and being able to be, but yet coming out towards them to go.
Example.
You know what I mean?
His example's been pretty good.
His example has been deplorable. It's appalling, because all he do is say yes, 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 dance Holyfield, he dance, run Holyfield, he runs, sit Holyfield, he sits. He has nothing to contribute to society with any spiritual redeeming value.
And next month, I'm promoting a fight between Holyfield and King.
No, it's just the truth. I'm not mad at him. I just feel sorry for him.
Let me take a call from Bob in Los Angeles. Go ahead, Bob.
Hi, Don.
Hi, Bob.
I'm a big fan of yours, and I've been that big fan of yours for a long time lately.
Thank you so much, and we're glad to have you on Schaap Talk.
And I love the hair.
Thank you. It's an aura from God.
I was wondering, who's going to be your main man now that Mike Tyson's gone?
Well, you know, it's funny how you would say that, but let me just go through a little brief synopsis because, you know, they have a time limit on me here. When I started with Muhammad Ali, I started at the top. All right, I went to Muhammad Ali. I went and got George Foreman first in order to get Muhammad Ali back to championship. Muhammad Ali got the championship. I kept it as long as he was there with Joe Frazier, George Foreman. Every heavyweight champion for the last 2 decades, they've been with me, from Larry Holmes into Michael Dukes, who also got to be heavyweight champion of the world in the WBA version, undefeated. So I developed 2 heavyweight champions, something that is unheard of in the boxing business. And everyone that left, when Roberto Duran left, they said, where was I going? When Ali left me for an interim, a brief interim, where are you going now? You know, I have guys that I will always be able to keep going, but it saddens me when I see one of the soldiers fall and he's been like betrayed, and he's been, you know, something like what happened to Mike Tyson when due process takes abuse. Herein, I'm not saying whether he's guilty or innocent, because I know that Dick is ready to jump the gun. I'm going to talk about due process in this great nation called America. The ability to have equal justice under the laws.
I'll let you start with that, okay? We have to take a break. I just want to remind the field there's a baseball game tonight, 10 o'clock, Angels, 10 o'clock Eastern Time, Angels against the A's here on ESPN.
Only in America.
Only in America you can continue. Welcome back to King Talk, or whatever it's called. You were talking about due process. Give me a concise explanation.
Well, due process means a level playing field, a fair and just trial. Mike did not receive that. Then when going into being convicted, then to be remanded into jail, I think that's an abuse of his civil rights, because it's a suspendable sentence and he should have been able to give bail like anyone else that would come in America. So they say we're not going to treat Mike differently. It's going to be like anyone else. But they did treat him differently. Okay. You understand?
One thing, the defense. Did it surprise you the way it went? I mean, it sort of painted him as being a villain and then saying, well, he's a villain, but he didn't do this. That's a tough defense.
That is a very tough defense, and that is one of the things that I have truly said to the lawyers that were involved in, but I'm not into puller bashing. You know, that has been done, but let the process run its course, even though that in spite of that, the Founding Fathers' infinite wisdom gave ways and means to correct those type of errors. But for them to remand Mike as though he's a beast and a monster and a killer under the guise of that he would flee and jump bond, I mean, it's ridiculous and it's ludicrous. And we see this, and now we see a process in Indiana being practiced of trying to protect one of their own. I think that's very sad, and I'm just prayerful and hopeful and that the Supreme Court of Indiana will stand up and be accounted for by giving their verdict according to the law, supporting the Constitution that they have sworn to support, and not try to protect a friend, because this country is too valuable, is too great for any one individual to step on due process, not the individual, the person that's being hurt in the process of the crime.
Let's take another call from Mike in Denver. Go ahead, Mike. You have a question for Don?
Yes, sir.
Mike,
Hi.
how are you?
How you doing, Mr. King?
I'm fine.
Okay, what I wanted to ask you was, if you said that you feel that Mike Tyson is the best fighter, right?
Yes.
Okay, if he were fighting in prime time with Muhammad Ali, who would you feel would win that fight?
Now, that's a fantasy match, you know, and that's a loaded question.
But you'll answer it anyway.
Well, you know, I do the best that I can. I think that you can hardly do, those are questions that would be barbershop conversation, on the street corner conversation. Muhammad Ali was lightning fast. He had the best reflexes of anyone I've ever seen, but also Mike Tyson has great speed, and what happens to Mike Tyson's speed is the explosion of his punch. Everyone comes to see the big punch, and in the big punch, you know, it sort of like obliterates the speed, so you don't really see how fast Mike Tyson is. It would be one heck of a match if it ever was to come to pass.
And I sure would like to be the one who promotes it, but he probably would be the one. We'll be back with Don King after these messages.
Ground transportation provided by Daybell Limousines, serving you in over 350 cities worldwide. Hotel accommodations provided by the Lowe's New York Hotel, conveniently located in the heart of Manhattan.
We're down to our final few seconds with Don King. Larry Holmes fights Evander Holyfield in June. Who do you like in the fight?
I like Larry Holmes. I think the relic of Larry Holmes will destroy Evander Holyfield.
Well, thank you for being with me. This is a little present for you that I thought you would enjoy. Thanks to Don King for being with us tonight. Thanks to our viewers and our callers. Join us again next Tuesday at 7:30 Eastern Time here on ESPN. Another chance to talk to one of your sports heroes or your sports villains. And don't forget to join Robin Roberts and me on Sunday, NFL Draft Day, the Sports Reporter starting early at 9:30 a.m. Eastern Time. Thanks for being with us. Good night. Good night to both Don Kings.
Travel provided by Continental. One airline can make a difference. What's the difference? For unrestricted coach, a first-class seat. That's the difference on Continental.